All right, hi everybody, it's Heidi Hope and it's FAQ Friday. Thanks for joining me this week. I know it's been a little while since we've had an FAQ Friday. This summer started off pretty busy, and so I've been tied up on a lot of Fridays with travel shoots and the retreat, just a lot of stuff going on. So here we are, and now there's only 12 weeks left until I'm out on maternity leave, which is kind of crazy. So this baby's getting bigger and bigger. So you can see if I turn to the side there, I guess that's what babies do. And now it felt like the slowest pregnancy ever. Now it feels like it's going by fast. Okay, so I have all your questions here this week. Awesome questions. Many more people are finding us on Instagram than are seeing our Facebook posts. As you all know, Facebook for businesses, you're not going to see much on the business page there anymore. So the best way to really find it and make sure that you have the opportunity to ask your questions every week is by following me over on Instagram. And my handle there is instagram.com/Heidi_Hope. It's with a little underscore in between Heidi and Hope. So you can find me there. And I love Instagram. I've been using it more and more lately, and it's sort of a combination of started out more of my personal pictures, and then I've also kind of combined stuff from the studio as well. So it's pretty much just my whole world that I'm sharing from my iPhone. So head on over to Instagram and follow me, and I'd love to follow you back too. Okay, so let's get started on this week's questions. Let's get right in here. There were a lot. I don't get to all the questions every week, so if your question doesn't get answered this week, please resubmit it in the weeks to come, and I eventually get to all of the questions. And I do, if there's a question that I recently answered in another episode, I try to just pull that out of the mix, because you'll have to go back and check out one of the other videos. That's not to say you can't re-ask it, though, in the weeks ahead. I'll get to it certainly at some point. Okay, so here's our first question. Yay, I really missed you. This is from Erin Marie 31 on Instagram. Always get permits for on-location shoots. Do you require a certain amount of time before going to a new location so you can check it out, find out if there's any fees to use it, and get permits? Any info on organizing an on-location shoot would be helpful. So for most of the locations around here that I shoot at, they're areas that not a lot of people know about or shoot at, so they don't generally require permits. But if it's a public place that is really beautiful that photographers do want to use, then I would check into getting permits. So for example, there's a park near us that we shoot at sometimes called Roger Williams Park here in Rhode Island. And I called them to find out, and there are certain areas of the park that are very popular for wedding photographers. So if you're going to shoot in those areas, then you do need to get a permit you can purchase. But then there's other areas of the park that are not popular for weddings, and you can go to them anytime, and you don't need a permit. And then same goes for there's a few little local parks that are down by the water around here, and they don't require a permit. They're public property, and they're not very popular with photographers. So I don't worry about any of that. But if it's a place where a lot of people are photographing, or if it's a private property, obviously any private property, you want to talk to or get in touch with the property owner and just see if they require a permit. There's another place, a farm that we shoot at sometimes, that you can buy a membership to the farm, and then that they allow that. So you just call and say, I'm a photographer. I'm interested in using this area of land for family portraits. Do you offer permits for photographers? Do you have any kind of location fee? There's another place I went that they charge you and everybody you're photographing an admission fee. So if everybody pays the admission fee, then you can do whatever you want to take pictures on the property. So it really depends on the location, and you want to get in touch with the owner of the land. And then I think you asked, do you require a certain amount of time? So we generally do our pre-session consultations where we talk to the clients about where they want to do the pictures and all the planning about 2 to 3 weeks before their session date. But if it was a place and when they're booking, we do talk about where they're going to go and if they want to go outside. And now we just know places that we're comfortable with shooting around here. So I don't really, once I'm comfortable in a spot, I don't break outside the box that much and look for other locations. We also don't have a lot of like open land around here in New England. I'm not sure where you're from, but in our area, there's just, you're limited. There's not a ton of land that you can go exploring on. So once we know our spots, we stick to them. But I would say if you are going to look into a new location, or if you're starting to work with clients outdoors and you don't have a lot of locations, make sure you do that pre-session consultation with them much earlier so you have some time and you can create a backup plan. You also want to think about having kind of some backup locations for weather. I know a lot of wedding photographers who do that, where they have a top location that they would go outdoors, but they can't just reschedule. Certainly they can't reschedule a wedding, but even their engagement sessions, their schedule is a little tighter. So they need to know some good indoor locations that would work really well for their couples as well. Great question. Thanks for that. Okay, let's pull the next one. Oops, I pulled two. So we'll do both of them. Let's see. This one is from SHAO Photography on Instagram. Do you use Imagenomics for skin retouching? That's the portraiture plugin. And I love all your packaging ideas. Which website do you usually purchase all of your packaging supplies? Thank you so much. So all of our packaging is from HB Photo Packaging. And actually this bag, this blue bag right here, is from them, and we love them, and they just sponsored our last retreat too. Their bags are really heavyweight, they just feel nice, and they do boxes and stuff like that too, and it's like the perfect Tidy Hope turquoise, but they do have a lot of other colors as well, so check them out. It's HB Photo Packaging, and they're a local company to us too. They're really close by. So we use them, and then we do have some folders from Rice Supply Studio as well. And then for skin retouching, yes, we use portraiture for skin retouching. Okay, and we do some hand retouching too, but we'll run portraiture at like a low level on everything for batching. Okay, this question is from Kay Travers Photo on Instagram. Do you think it's a good idea to use more than one pro lab if they offer different products, prices, etc.? I'm currently using 2 labs for different products, and I was wondering if anyone else does the same thing. Thanks for your time. Great question. Yes, we do use different labs. I will say it takes a lot of time to price shop and compare and do all that stuff. So once we find a product that we love, we really do stick with it. We have been using WHCC as our lab since the very beginning in business, and I absolutely love them. And their quality, and we have really consistent, our prints are really consistent, so much so that we would trust drop shipping anything to a client at this point, knowing that the quality is going to be really great. So we've used them over the years, but if there's a certain thing that they didn't carry, like there was one holiday season where we really liked a shape of cards that Miller's carried, or you know, there are different things for frames. Now WHCC and Organic Bloom work together, which is awesome, but we were doing our framing through Organic Bloom. And so there's been different times where, yes, there are certain products that we love from other companies that we'll use, but the bulk of our ordering is through that one lab. And that's really to keep things easier and more time efficient for us too, because when you start adding a lot of different labs to your workflow, and then you're looking at who's got the best prices at different times of the year and everything, it's just a lot of time. And so you have to decide for yourself if the amount of time that's going into managing all of that is worth it within your workflow. So great question. But yes, we do use multiple labs, with one main lab being WHCC. Okay, here's another one. This is from Kay Travers. Again, you get 2 questions this week. Oh, I just thought of another question. Do you think you would ever open up FAQ Friday episodes to include your staff? For example, since your husband runs the business end, maybe he could have his own out and we could ask him our business questions. Thanks again. I rewatched all of the past FAQ Friday episodes, and I wanted to thank you for all your great advice and tips. Thank you. Yes, I would totally open up the mic to Sean if he'd be willing to come in here. So maybe we can do that next week. We'll put him in the hot seat. Embarrass me with it. I'm just kidding. But yeah, you could definitely pick his business brilliant brain with some of your questions. So maybe we'll do that next week. You'll have to tune in to find out. Okay, we had 2 questions, the same here. Alexandria Reamer on Instagram and Baby Flowers on Instagram both want to know what we are naming the baby on the way. So that's a great question. We haven't 100% decided yet. You have to realize that with Grace, we picked out her name like 2 days after she was born. We're like, are we going to do Grace? Yes. And now it seems very fitting for her. But I'm kind of a bad decision maker, and the two of us are really lazy. I'm like, do you want to look at baby names? And he's like, I thought we had some names that we already like. So we're really not exploring a lot of names. But I will tell you that I think that we're going to go with another G name. So Juliana with a G, and our last name is Gerard with a G. And so we think we're going to add another G to the mix, and we just have to find the perfect G name. So if you have any suggestions for me, certainly send them my way, and that will save me the trouble of looking through baby books, which I won't do. So you guys will all have to, maybe I'll do an FAQ Friday with the baby after the baby's born, and you guys can meet him, and I'll announce his name. Okay, here's another question for you. Spiffany, I love that name. Spiffany on Facebook asks, are you going natural? Another baby question. Are you going natural with baby number 3? Any remedies you've used in the past that you can share, essential oils or hypnobirthing? I don't know what I'm doing with baby number 3. I will tell you, I have not gone natural yet. I have the two other babies. My first, Juliana, was like a horrible labor, 6 hours, and I mean, I did like the first 26 natural before they took mercy on me and I was begging for an epidural, and then after the epidural I was like, oh, I mean, I was the person who was hugging the anesthesiologist or whatever they call them. And then with Grace, I was like, I will take the epidural as soon as you can give it to me. And her labor was so easy, quick and easy and awesome. So hopefully that's the way this one goes. I just don't know. I feel like if I don't need one, I would go without it. At this point, I'm not so scared. I was really terrified after the first labor. Grace's labor, I'm not as scared. So we'll just see what happens. I'm just going to go with the flow. Like I said, I'm not a good decision maker. So I can't decide these things ahead of time. Okay. Jody asks, I thought I would try being one of the only, oh, this is an old one actually. I think this was stuck in the bag. But we'll read her question anyways. This is from like a month ago, I think, because I recognize it. I thought I would try being one of the only Facebook questions. How did you decide it was time to start hiring employees, and who did you hire first? An assistant to help with email, packaging, or a designer to help with newsletters, ads, etc. The very first person I hired was someone to help edit. And the way that I determined that I needed them was because editing at the time for me, because I wasn't as efficient with it, which is something that I love to teach in my workshops, is, I mean, I could sit all day and get totally sucked into it and like be in the zone. But that's not really efficient for a business. And so as much as I love playing and could easily spend 20 hours editing a folder, I really don't have time for that. And so in the beginning, I hired somebody else with the photos. But then after having Grace, my second daughter, we let our editor go around that time, and I had to do the editing myself on top of, I was back at work about 4 weeks after I had her, and then I had to pull on this other person's whole 40-hour week workload. So I learned to get really fast, and it's mostly through batching and synchronizing things and creating my own little presets and stuff within Adobe Camera Raw. So now editing has become really fast. But when you're thinking about hiring somebody, my advice is always like, think about what is taking you the most amount of time and giving you the least amount of return within your business. And that's a good thing for you to outsource to somebody else, where the things that you're best at and the things that give you the best return for your time are the things that you should be focusing on trying to do yourself and most of the time within your business. Okay, let's pull another one here. I'm going to go all the way to 2:30 today because, well, first I started late, and then second, this is another old one. I'm pulling ones from last week. Okay, sorry. I must have just thrown everything in the bag. Okay, here's one from this week. I can tell now because I folded this week and the ones from last week aren't folded. Okay, Moments in Light Photography asks, I recently watched one of your FAQ Fridays where you addressed a question about noise while shooting in high ISO. You mentioned that it's not a problem for you with the D4, but I 800, which is very similar in noise reduction. And I do notice it, especially when I shoot backlit subjects. My images do not come out clean and sharp like yours. Is there anything else that you do? Do you have your camera noise reduction setting to normal or high? Do you use a higher f-stop or shutter speed to ensure the best clarity? What do you do to get beautiful crispness and clarity? There's a lot of things that go into clarity in your photos, and it's not just the ISO. So the ISO is one thing, and when I shoot at high ISOs, it's really important when you shoot at high ISOs to get the exposure perfect. So what could be happening with your backlit photos is that you're still underexposing them slightly, because that happens a lot with backlit photos. Your camera's telling you there's so much light coming into the scene, reduce your exposure, and then you're not exposing properly for the skin tones of your subject. So if you have a backlit image, you want to make sure you're exposing. Don't worry about if you blow out the background, you blow out the background. You want to look at the skin tones of your subject and make sure that you're exposing for those skin tones. So they're as close as possible as how you would want them to appear in the final photo. So that's number one, is getting your exposure as perfect as possible. Because if you don't have to mess with it a lot in post-processing, then you're not going to, that digital noise is going to be much less noticeable. If you have to bring the exposure up in post-processing, that's when the noise is going to start coming out. So that's one thing, get the exposure perfect. Another thing is, yes, on my camera, I have the ISO, high ISO noise reduction set to high pretty much all the time, because I'm almost always shooting over 400 for my ISO, unless I'm outdoors and it's really bright. But most of my studio work, I leave it to the high ISO noise reduction, and that can be found right within your camera's menu. And then it is important to nail your focus as well. So if you're finding that you feel, if the noise isn't the problem so much as the clarity of the overall clarity of the image, that could be a focus issue. And it could be, mastering your autofocus, knowing when to use manual focus versus different types of autofocuses, and focus and, your shutter speed too. So your shutter speed, the rule for shutter speed is it should never be slower than 1 over the length of your lens. So if you have a 50mm lens on your camera, your shutter speed should never be less than 1 over 60. If you have a 100mm lens on your camera, you never want your shutter speed to be less than 1 over 100. And so you want it when you're hand holding. If you have a tripod, you can go slower. But if you're hand holding the camera, just your natural hand shake with a longer lens means you're going to need a higher shutter speed. So that's another thing that could contribute to that. And then finally, I do noise reduction and sharpening in Adobe Camera Raw. So I shoot in raw files, and I do most of the post-processing in Adobe Camera Raw. And if you have Lightroom's the same thing. So doing most of the processing there has significantly helped the quality of my images to be more clear. So that's a big thing too. So I don't do a lot of junk to it in Photoshop. Although I love playing in Photoshop and I love actions and I love experimenting, the bulk of my editing is done in Camera Raw. And if you use Lightroom, it should be done in Lightroom. And then you can use Photoshop for more of the creative, artistic stuff and composites and clone stamping and all that good stuff. So really good question. All right, I'm gonna take one more for the day. Let me find a folded one. Unless it's a really short question. Maybe I'll take two. Okay, this one is from Danny Stevens Photos. I'm excited you're back. FAQ Friday has helped inspire me so much. I'm so glad to hear that. I love cake smashes. They've become very popular, but I find that they're my lowest earning session. Do you offer special products tailored to your cake smashes, or how do you make them profitable? Great question. So one thing about cake smashes that I think is important is that the actual cake smash photos are not a huge seller. I think people love them and they want to create photos out of the milestone. And we do have specific products that are catered towards just those cake smash images. Like we do We do custom birthday party invitations. We do custom designed thank you cards to match their party theme. Cake Smash images are beautiful in albums, and we do storyboards with them where it's a bunch of different images. But we do a full formal session before the Cake Smash. So the Cake Smash is only the last 10 or 15 minutes of the session. And we do full family first, and we do individual, more traditional baby portraits, because I think to myself, what would I want as a consumer? I'm not going to plaster my walls with a million Cake Smash images. I want them because it's such a special milestone. And it's so fun to look back on. It's really fun to experience too. It's a great way to celebrate baby's first birthday. So I want to do that, but I know if I'm going to put something over my mantle in my living room, it's probably not going to be the Cake Smash image. It's probably going to be my full family photo, or a photo of my kids together, or even an individual of just my child, but it's probably not going to be them with cake all over their face. So I think we talk about in the pre-session consultation with the clients, we talk about what are you going to do with the images? What do you want to use these for? And we really gear different parts of the session towards what they're anticipating purchasing after the session. And I think that that's important for sales for any session. And really, I think it's just important in general. It's part of the service that we can provide as photographers. And it's a way that we can ensure that our clients are really enjoying their investment for years to come. So there are, there's a million options for photographers that people could choose. And I think that because so many pictures are taken every day, we kind of have like image saturation. And I feel like by just taking the pictures and then not following through with helping them to print them, do something with them, preserve them, enjoy them forever. It doesn't matter if they spent $100 or $10,000, they're not going to feel like their investment is worth it unless they are able to enjoy those images for years to come and not just in a digital sense. So although I see the purpose of digitals, and we do sell digitals, and clients love digitals, and they're great for archiving and for your own home printing projects and stuff like that, we really want to ensure that clients also, that we do the job of providing clients with other things to do with their images besides just getting the digitals. And they really, on the end, when they pick up their frame, when they get complimented on it, when they send out their birthday invitations, they are so thankful for that in the end. Okay, awesome questions. Thank you everybody for joining me this week for FAQ Friday. There was one more question that I got that I didn't get to, but I do want to address it because it's important, and that is that all of the registration for our 2016 workshops, early bird registration, opened this month. So it went out to our wait list first. We've had a ton of people sign up already, which I'm super excited about. I can't wait to meet all of you that already signed up. And the June workshop is already halfway sold out. So if you want in, I'm only offering 3 workshops out of our studio next year because I've got a pretty busy schedule already. So if you want to come to our studio and meet the team and learn from us here, those 3 dates are your chances. So to learn more about those workshops, you can go to HeidiHope.com/learning. Make sure you're signed up for our newsletter for photographers because they hear about all this stuff first. But you can also go to the shopping cart there and read some more about our workshops right on that website. So, so if your question didn't get answered, please resubmit it next week. We've got a few more weeks to go for the summer here for FAQ Friday. Not sure exactly when I'll stop doing it for this baby. I'd like him to come a little bit early, but we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll be here in the middle of October, super pregnant, and still joining you every week, complaining about how pregnant I am. Okay, so I hope you all have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week for FAQ Friday. Bye, everyone.